We are live.
Now remember.
No, I did it. That was the big dramatic thing.
Dear. One day.
Because if you say we're live right away, the beginning of the broadcast gets cut off for our viewers.
Really?
On YouTube.
I didn't know that.
It's an important fact I learned independently and brought to everyone's attention this week for the first time.
Fantastic. Well done, Andy.
Thank you.
We'd be lost without you.
My friends, this is Literary Roadhouse. One short story once a week. I'm Andy.
I'm Anise.
And I'm Gerald, not squeaky like Andy.
I'm not squeaky. I'm full of character. And this week we read The Theresa Job by Colson Whitehead. If you haven't read it, I don't know, maybe you should or don't. I'm not your boss. But it's about Ray Carney, who's going around in New York City, and the year is 1953 or something. Do we know what year it is? I don't think we know what year it is.
In the interview, he says 1959.
Okay. 1953. We had to say Dickety because the Kaiser stole our number 50. So Ray goes to this bar where he meets up with his screw-up cousin and talks about the cool new bar owner. And it's a cool, awesome description. And then his screw-up cousin, Freddie, tries to get him wrapped up in burglary heists. And Ray's like, I don't want to be in burglary heist. And Freddie's like, oh, you've done other like semi-criminal stuff with me before. And Ray's like, I don't want to do burglary heists. And yeah.
I'm just raising my hand. I think it's real specific to say that Ray is being pulled into this as the fence. He's not going to be there for the burglary. He's the fence.
He's the fence.
Detail. Yes.
Right.
Since when do we start interrupting the summary?
I'm just saying it's a really
I've interrupted.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
He would have come on to that, maybe.
I don't think so.
Oh, do you know? Okay.
Yeah.
Time had passed.
Should we let him carry on now?
All right.
So there's Ray's going to be the fence. And Freddie's like, no, you should do it. We're going to make some money and I need your help. And Ray's like, I'll think about it. And then Ray finally calls Freddie up later and is like, no, I got like a family and this is stupid and no. And then later on, the heist happens and Ray sees it in the newspaper. And then Freddie calls him like, hey, you remember when you told me no? I did not tell Miami Joe that. So he thinks you're still in and we're on our way to your place. And then we hear about the heist and it was pretty formulaic and everything went by the numbers and played out the way they thought. But it's really interesting in the way it's written about all these side characters. But also the plot doesn't mean anything. And then they do a heist. And then finally, they're coming in. They're coming to Ray's house with the fenced goods. And Ray's like, oh, what am I going to do? Am I going to do it? There's turmoil. And then he does. He's going to be the fence. End of the story.
Oh.
Andy, did you not like this story? I can't tell from your tone.
No.
What?
I know.
I love this story. Okay, good.
Well, I liked reading it, okay? It was... The descriptions of everything were real cool. Everything was really neat. Last week, we read a story that was... I guess last week was The City Born Great. And that one wasn't so much an excerpt, but it was like a short story version of this novel thing the author was also doing. Mm-hmm. And this one's much more clearly an excerpt. And I'm somewhat angry at it for being an excerpt instead of a short story. Because it's not a short story. It's a part of something. It's not its own thing.
Disagree.
Andy is correct.
What?
You may disagree if you wish, but Andy is 100% correct.
Right. Well, just the specific, because last week I was very strongly in favor of, this feels like maybe it wants to be part of something more, but it stands alone just fine. And this one, like, it doesn't. I don't want to go to bat for it. It doesn't stand alone nearly as fine. It's clearly an excerpt. It's an excerpt of something interesting. If I was on a novel reading podcast, I'd like to discuss the novel. I don't hate the thing, but it's a bad short story. Because it isn't. It's part of a larger work.
It doesn't end, it stops.
It stops. It just stops.
Okay.
But like it's real. I love reading Colson Whitehead. It's real interesting. He's got just great details on all of the different world and characters and things. Like he makes me care about the random bellhop guy. And
that's one of the best things a story can do is transport you and make you invested in random characters and take you someplace else. Like that is like a
it's one of the best things a story can do.
Yeah, but it also has to be a story.
Right.
It is a story. What are you talking
Beginning,
about?
middle, and end.
The beginning is Ray Carney. He's the cousin who, like, okay, right? Remember, we've talked about this before. How with a plot, it's either like things that are happening changes over time, but if it's a good story, there's a character arc that changes over time as well. You can track a change in a character's arc as well, right? And that happens. Ray Carney, especially in your understanding of who Ray Carney is, right? Because in the beginning, he's like, I'm the straight shooting cousin. I got a furniture store. Freddie, he's the petty thief, like cousin who, whatever, we grew up together, so I love him. He's just kind of like a rascal. Sometimes he's got no common sense. Unlike me, I got all the common sense. And then Freddie comes in and Freddie's like, you want to be a fence? And Carney's like, I don't know. I don't want to be a fence because let me tell you, that's stupid. Like, this is like, this sounds like a lot. Also, I don't know about this Miami Joe guy. And then Freddie's like, sleep on it. Because in the past, Freddie knows if you tell Ray to sleep on it, he'll come back the next day and be like, yeah, I'm in. But this time, Ray says, no, this is really fucking stupid. I got a wife, I got a kid, I got a store. Like, yeah, in the past, I fenced stuff for you, sure. So you get that little reveal, right? And
right.
like, like a few things, right? But not like all the jewelry. And then by the end of the story, he's like, yeah, there's a guy in Canal Street. I'm the fence. There's a guy in Canal Street. I'm going to give him all this jewelry. So, like, Ray's change is good.
And Anish, you sound like you're reading a Sopranos script. I don't know. Maybe I do. Maybe
that's what it is. Like, that's the other thing. It's like Andy's, was said in the summary, like, oh, it's a formulaic heist. Yeah, but it's like a respectful nod to heist. It's like we're gonna hit all the heist buttons. Oh. You got the like, right?
Right, like, and there's like the guy. What's his name? Pepper. I don't know what he does, but like he's up to no good somehow. He's gonna be he's gonna be trouble later.
He's the muscle. You
know? He's the wild card.
Miami
in the
Joe
proper
is the
story. Pepper's going to appear in the proper story later on when you have.
Yeah, I'm sure Pepper's great in the actual novel.
All right. Well, I feel like you guys. I'm actually really happy that you're both really wrong because, like I said before we started recording, I was sad that I wouldn't have much to say about the story because to me, the story is really good. I really enjoyed the prose. Great job. Wrap it up. I got nothing more to say. Oh, and the theme is really evident. He confirms it in the interview with the New Yorker. Nothing wrong with having an evident theme. Good job all around. Let's pack up this Sunday recording. So I was afraid I wouldn't have 30 minutes of material, but now I have to fight you guys for being wrong. So that's exciting.
Yeah. Well, you're very feisty today.
I'm just saying.
Have you not eaten yet or something? You've not had coffee or something?
I have not eaten yet. I've only had
that's
black tea.
I just made breakfast, but I haven't eaten breakfast.
Yeah,
for everyone on YouTube not listening to the audio.
Ooh,
oh, special treat!
bacon.
There's breakfast.
Wow.
That's what breakfast looks like.
That's cold though.
It's it's a little cold.
Yeah,
I went to a wedding last night, and the catering for an evening meal was breakfast. It was genius. It was what everybody wanted.
Breakfast for dinner at a wedding.
For dinner at a wedding.
Perfect.
Oh man!
Someone should write a story about that. That would be great.
I'm gonna have the crepe restaurant I like cater my weddings.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
That's awesome.
Or at least
that would have an ending to it. That would be really great.
This does have an ending. The ending is, there's that line about how like everyone has like secret alleyways and streets, right? But you don't want people to know about them and people to know about your like major avenues and boulevards. So when people have the map of you, that whole thing. That's what the story's about. That's what the novel is about. And then when you read the interview with Colson Whitehead that he did with the New Yorker, he's like, basically the whole novel is revealing all the way that Ray Carney has compartmentalized himself and how all these heists that he takes on kind of reveal that. And this is the first one. Anyway.
Yeah. See,
it sounds like a really good novel.
You see the thing is that he's been a fence before. We get the fact that he's a reluctant fence. We get the fact that he's trying to be an upstanding pillar of the community. I've got a shop, and I'm respectful, and I got a family, and all this sort of stuff. I got a family. They would do that. Oh, I got a family, and so all this, yes, get that, but it was revealed that he's fenced before, so he fences again.
Yeah, but small time fence. No, that's a difference.
Well, he's got
A TV that fell off the back of a truck versus a jewel heist is a legitimate difference.
It's a legitimate difference, and it's a big difference for Freddy too, right? Freddy used to be more of a petty thief kind, and now he's walking around with guns, threatening people. He's never going to fire that
Hanging
gun.
out with Miami Joe.
Yeah, Miami Joe.
I love. He's like Miami Joe wears a purple suit, and like Ray thinks like basically like the narration's like that doesn't mean
that
anything.
does not narrow it down.
Does not narrow it down at all.
Fantastic. So yeah, the writing. I love the writing. I love the description. I love the scene setting. I love the characters. Everything. And that's why it's so frustrating, because for me, that it doesn't end properly. It's not. It's a great. You just sort of getting into it, and you think, oh, I really like this story. It's really great. It's fantastic, and then stops.
Right. As I was reading, I was like, oh wow, this is just getting going. And I looked at my little scroll bar, and I was like, oh, what could possibly happen in this left?
Well, then, as a piece of marketing, it's really effective. As a piece of marketing,
nothing happened in the last 2 centimeters of story. It just stopped.
Hold on. What for either of you or both of you? What was left unanswered? Like, what were you reading? You were like, well, that was abrupt. What's the question you still have?
It wasn't abrupt. It just didn't.
Well, I get okay. Here's what
go on.
The specific thing that he was bucking up against was like, no, I'm respectable. I got my store. I got my family. What's going to happen to them? And that's what's unanswered, right? What are the repercussions of his "I'm a fence" decision, right? Like, it's a cool decision to end a chapter on, but like, no, that's what the story's about. Like, what happens? How does that change the other things in his life if he's doing it more?
I guess that's really effective writing that makes you. I mean, when I read it, for me, it was whether or not he ends up taking the job. Like, that's the question at the outset. Is and like that gets answered. He takes it. He's a fence.
But it doesn't. It doesn't. See what happens for me is that yes, he's small time and what's his face? What's his psychic name?
Freddy the Snake.
Small time crooks.
No.
I made that up.
Small time crooks and small time fence.
Great.
Slim. A small time, and they've gone up to, everything goes nice at the hotel, and they steal some stuff, and he comes and he fences it, and that's it. We're up here. We're not down here. We've not rounded it off. We're up here, and it's like a stepping stone onto the next part of the story. And I'm sure in the novel there will be an ending. It won't just sort of go up.
Right.
And then...
Well, because that's the other thing. This isn't the case of like a shitty short story where the author biffed the ending and it just sucks. This is clearly a masterful work that's a portion of a larger work.
See, I keep
so it's not like it's a critique of this, but it's a critique of it when I thought I was reading a short story.
You see, he wrote the Underground Railroad, and I keep thinking whenever I see that it's the Underground Airlines, which we've read.
Yeah.
And
I think Underground Railroad's better. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think, we read that on the podcast, on the big podcast, where we read novels, like from beginning to end, not beginning to just after the beginning. And but no, it wasn't that one. So anyway.
Man. I first read Colson Whitehead. Fun Colson Whitehead fact. Accidentally. Cool. I was just reading a bunch of zombie novels at the time, and he wrote a zombie novel called Zone 1. But it's not just a zombie novel. It's Colson Whitehead heavy-hitting literary novel about societal themes, and it took me very much by surprise. I thought I was reading some pulp. Just going for it. I didn't know who Colson Whitehead was.
Fantastic.
I was like, zombies, that's going to be fun. I was like, oh.
He's making me think and feel things. Oh. He's making me reflect on the human condition and society.
Oh, no. How dare you?
No.
Please, no.
Oh.
That's not why I read books.
Yeah. Oh. That took me by surprise. Liked it. Real good. Oh, boy.
Now I want to read Zone 1.
Yeah, it's not what you think.
I'm writing it down.
It's not what you think, at least. I know who Colson Whitehead is, so maybe it's what I think.
Right. It's what you'd think from a Colson Whitehead zombie novel. It's not what you think from a pulpy zombie novel.
Right.
I haven't read Underground Railroad, but I've begun to watch Underground Railroad. And my partner has read Underground Railroad, so we're watching it together. And so far, so real intense.
Is it a TV thing?
Yeah, it's on the Amazons.
Oh,
yeah.
We have that over here.
Mm-hmm.
We have Amazon here, so
everyone has it. They're everywhere.
Well, but you have to pay money, so we have Netflix is here, but we don't subscribe to Netflix because it's money.
Yep.
Right.
When we're rich and famous, or just rich,
or just famous. No, wait, that doesn't do it.
Have you considered, Gerald, making some money on the side by being a fence?
Oh,
I see what you did there. Very good.
Back to the story we read.
Or
should I say the chapter we read? Zing!
Oh my God! Here's a short story about Gerald. Upstanding member of society, retired. Doing a lot of things locally, supporting writers, workshops, and then somebody says, "Hey, I got a bunch of limited edition books I need to offload from the heist I did." I'm just saying, I'd read it. I'd read it in short story format. Also novel, I guess. I would do both.
Yeah. And I'd say, yes, I'll fence that for you. And then the story would stop.
Right, you don't have to deal with any of the aftermath.
No, wouldn't have to deal with any difficult stuff later on. No.
Well, we know what happens. You get Netflix. We already know what's going to happen.
Oh, dear,
so, okay. Is this worthy of an exploration? What's the difference in my heart between the City Born Great and the Theresa job?
You can't even compare them. They're so different.
They're so similar.
How? All right, go explain how they are similar.
They're both short stories excerpted from a larger work set in New York City.
No, because the City Born Great hadn't been the novel version had not been written yet. It was the idea ahead of a novel, so it was already conceived in short story format from its inception.
Right, which is why I liked it better. Yes, thank you for putting your finger on it.
I think we've read other excerpts that were fine. I'd have to go back into our archives to find them. But we have read other excerpts from novels. The New Yorker does this quite a bit.
Yeah. Oh, you know what was the other one, though? But again, the other one I liked was I'm going to flub her name. Annie Proust? Proust.
Yeah. With an S on the end.
Well, so that one was a short story version of the same story she did a novel about. But again, it was not an excerpted chapter. It was.
We've read a couple. Not the Haskins Steer, the other one that we did. The name of it. Both were amazing. So, let me see if I can remember.
You see, the one we read last week. The one we read last week had a nice sort of an ending. It had like an epilogue sort of thing. It had like a bookend, because yes, it could carry on from there, but from that part of the story, we saw the main guy does his stuff, and then some years later he becomes the money guy and is looking for somebody to birth a city, and so that's a great ending. That's a fine ending. It's no problem. This just not. No.
I guess for me, it just answered the question, which is Ray Carney going to do it? That's the whole question. Although I think by the time it's you find out they're coming when they're on their way, it's really hard to pull out when Pepper is coming, and you don't even know who Pepper is.
Right. Oh, you don't want to cross Pepper. That's what I know. He's the wild card.
He's the wild card.
And he didn't do anything wild on the heist, but he had those crazy eyes.
He pretended to be reception.
Oh,
yeah, no, but
he was taking calls.
Well, they did the job by the numbers, right? Nothing unexpected happened on the job. You could tell Pepper had those crazy eyes. Pepper was Pepper was getting antsy. He was going to do something. He was like Mr. Blonde in Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah.
You know why everything went super well in the heist? Because it was Miami Joe's Lucky Tuesday.
It was Lucky Tuesday.
All those little things. It was just such a classic heist thing.
Yeah. No, I really liked everything except the format and where it stopped.
Okay, well, sounds like you want to read a novel. I have news for you. Great news.
I can. It exists.
Yes.
It's out there. More heists to come. Maybe you'll learn more about Pepper.
Probably, because he's going to do something.
What
Yeah,
if
there are
Pepper's
more
character
heists,
arc
for sure.
is he ends up working reception at a hotel? That's his retirement.
That's where he feels most fulfilled as a person.
He knew to offer a 10% discount at breakfast the next day.
Yeah.
Quick on his feet, you know.
Yeah,
Voucher.
He was born for that
Yeah.
job. Because black guys love vouchers. In
I
1959.
hope that person the next day when they realized it was a burglar and he was talking to a thief still insists on the voucher anyway.
Right.
Like that would be
Yeah.
Well,
very
I was
funny.
promised a voucher.
Yeah, I was
Yes, I
still
don't-
promised a voucher. It was by a thief. Like, okay, but you don't understand.
Yes, he was on the phone.
Mhm.
Yeah. So there. So not convinced yet.
Yeah,
then
no,
not-
same. I hear you, but yeah, no.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great. It's great writing. It's a great part of a story. It's a great bit. It's really interesting and great characters and great scene setting and the heist was interesting. Lots of details and that was really good.
I like that the heist was interesting, even though it went exactly by the numbers and very formulaic. But like all of the little bits, who is this guy who came down from the third floor? That guy never comes back to Chicago again.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
The
New York,
other way.
yeah. Never come back to New York.
Or the guy that talks to ladies and then entertains them for the evening.
Yeah.
If
Right.
they-
Lives a couple blocks away.
yeah. They're fantastic.
Venezuela
Great
National.
characters.
Yeah.
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 No,
And-
it's super great.
And the person who retains a couple of rooms on the top floor to do abortions.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not a real doctor.
Not
They
a real
later
doctor.
find
Of
out.
course not. No.
I like so digging into the prose a bit more because we've talked about this podcast. You know, there can be some great stories, but the prose can start to feel forgettable because it's sort of like the modern MFA voice. Like, yes, there's this particular style you can quickly identify. This is not that, and
Nope.
also the sometimes other writing that like they take sparse to a point where it doesn't really paint a picture enough. You know, it gives you just the bare bones of something, right? It'll be like, well, there is a desk here, I guess, and like there's a road and it intersects with another road, and that's it. That's all you know, and that's all you see. And there's no real like here he just really paints something with a lot of senses and also kind of like emotionally. He just does such a really good job of getting you in the right mood.
Yeah,
for the
it's almost
story.
as if this belongs in a longer piece of work, perhaps.
No, you can get that in shorter stories. We just mentioned Annie Proulx. She does that too with a very
Yeah.
different voice. But he has a very distinct voice in this, right? Like you're like, okay, I'm reading.
good.
Like, yeah, it's very
Love it. It's very
Yeah.
good. Like him a lot.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a lot of short stories that do this well, but it's just I feel like the last few short stories we've read, you know, had good or serviceable. Like the prose was good, but like this one just really bumped up a notch, very distinct, and it's just a joy to read that when it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
It's a very it's you can tell that he's very comfortable writing because it seems like it's not forced. Like a lot of stories that MFA type stories seem like they're forced sometimes. They're forced to meet certain beats and certain things. But this is just you just feel like he's writing because it's so easy and comfortable to read.
Yeah. And when he throws in those little bits about like the guy on the third floor or the guy who came from Chicago, like the little bits that or the guy from Gary, Indiana, like the little bits that he throws in don't feel disruptive. And it feels, even though technically a really sparse writer would say it's not necessary, it totally is for the vibe and the sort of fun that you get from the story.
Well, right. And gosh, if this story was written in MFA voice, it would be awful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like those little bits are the whole juice. That's what's going on.
That's why a heist by the books where nothing goes wrong is interesting.
Right.
Yeah, because we don't know the characters. We don't know, we don't know that there's a sort of hint that they're not very good at this sort of thing. And how good is Miami Joe? And is he really the organizer that he thinks he is, and all this sort of stuff?
Man, you know what's interesting is without telling us too many facts about these characters, we don't know about the characters. We know about their emotions, right? Like that's what's painted, right? The emotions of these people and of the little sub society they're in. Like we can track that perfectly.
Yeah. And the little bits of how they read each other, right? Like to what Gerald was saying, Miami Joe claims to have a couple of successful heists under his belt, like a department store payroll safe, right? And he hints at others, right? So you get the idea of he's a bullshit artist, like
right?
But he doesn't come out and say that. You don't need to have that proven in any way. Or like Bert, who like cleaned up Nightbirds, but still kind of looks the other way as people are plotting crimes, and he's the portrait, a pot-bellied portrait of Hear No Evil. But like, like Bert's a complicated character without telling us too much about him. Just basically what happens after he took over Nightbirds. That's all the information you get. Still good.
No, that's good.
It's so good. I don't know why you guys are grumpy.
Because it's got a bad ending.
No, it doesn't.
Well, it took me by surprise.
Yes,
guys,
I knew this was I knew this was related to the novel. That is it out? It just came out, or it's coming out.
It just came out.
New novel.
September,
yeah. Harlem Shuffle.
Yeah.
I knew this was a tie-in in some way, obviously, because I follow Colson Whitehead news, of course. But right, I had sort of thought it was a short story version of the thing. I did not realize it was an excerpt. The fact that it was an excerpt took me by surprise. And then I was just, I don't know, wrong-footed by it.
Yeah.
So there. I tell you what, the one thing that I really enjoyed, he was talking about Pepper and what a sort of, dodgy character he was, and how he was behind the thing, and then he wrote bang bang bang, and I thought, geez, someone shot someone, or something.
Yeah.
And it noticed that he was attacking the boxes. I thought, very well done. Got me sucked in there.
Aiken versus Drummond. All those little details just pull you in. You told me they were all Drummond safes. They were like, these safes take double the number of whacks. Crowbar in there.
I like that was also a fact that the safecracker knew, right? He's like, well, I can do the delicate work, but also like that takes 3 hits with a crowbar. Like that's in my library of safecracking knowledge. How many times do you have to hit it with a crowbar?
You hit it with a sledgehammer to make a hole you can get a crowbar through.
Yeah,
right?
You're right.
Yeah.
My mistake.
Yeah.
You know what? You're not going to be the safe crack in our heist. No. You're going to work reception.
I can be the getaway driver.
But the getaway driver ended up getting pulled into the lobby,
Well, yeah, that's because it's better to split it 4 ways than 5 ways.
Yeah.
Makes good sense.
Makes good sense.
Yeah.
Gerald's the fence.
Yeah, Gerald's sitting on the fence.
Sitting on the fence, eventually becomes the fence, gets his Netflix. That's the story of Gerald.
Gets his Netflix.
Hey! That's good. That's a good ending. I like that ending. But this story... Anyway.
Okay.
Shall we rate this thing?
Yes, let's do ratings.
Oh, gosh. How do I rate something I loved and hated?
Yeah.
Sounds more like you loved it. I don't know. You should replay the past 29 minutes. You loved it. So.
I'm going to rate it 4.
Okay.
Because the ending disappointed me so much.
Well, you're rating it as a short story.
I'm rating it as a short story.
As a short story on the short story podcast we do.
See, Anise is really fed up with me now.
Yeah. I'm not fed up. I think it's great that you guys came onto the show ready to be super wrong, so we could have a show.
I think I'm going to give it a 5.
Okay.
But I'm not going to give it a 6. Just because I want to say that the content of this story in a different format massaged slightly would have been a 6.
I'm like tempted to bring back Literary Roadhouse Book Club for one episode. It's just us discussing Harlem Shuffle.
That would be good, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So you're giving it a 5, you say?
Yeah, 5.
I'm giving it a 5.5. The only thing making it short of a 6 is
the bad ending.
No, not the bad ending. I did not think the ending was bad. It was really good. I had a lot of fun reading it. I love the voice and everything. It's just like I'm just comparing it to other 6s that I've given. And other 6s also had that extra little oomph of like some like, you know.
Yeah. There's no
just like a slight
choir of
revelatory
angels.
thing to the 6s.
Yeah.
Okay. So, guys, you want to hear something funny? I forgot to do an outro. Should I wing it?
I advise winging it.
All right, I'll try to wing it. But first, what are we reading next week? Next week, we are reading No One Here Is Going to Save You by Julian Zabal-Beascoa. Yeah, there we go.
Wow.
Yes,
That's
I'm
a name.
excited, I think. That's a name.
Wow.
Yes. But before you go, tell us if you were unsatisfied with this ending in the Facebook group, Literary Roadhouse Readers. We're going to do our best to support this podcast with heists. In the meantime, support our heist by leaving a review on iTunes or making a donation at patreon.com/Literary Roadhouse. Every bit helps. And as always, share this podcast with the pot-bellied, hear no evil bartender in your life. Until next time, read a good story.
That's pretty good winging it.
I want to support the podcast by having a shop selling books, having a bookshop even.
And those books may or may not have been acquired.
Yeah.
Through legal means.
Maybe.